As the doctors told him, if you worry and keep it inside, that was part of my mom's problem. They didn't know back then. They know now a lot. But back then, they came up with all sorts of things, and did the shock treatment and all sorts of things. And so he was worried I was going to have a problem too if I kept, worrying. But I just went on in life, and for some reason, had in my head that I could be the perfect wife and the perfect mother. And if I was perfect, I would show people, yes, you may know where I came from, but I am not sick. I am healthy. I am going to achieve things. And I struggled with reading, but I got through school and I was really good at secretarial work and bookkeeping. But I married someone from a Leave It to Beaver family, seriously. And his family, I still love them dearly. We're not married anymore, but I love them dearly. And they were my family along with my dad. Um, and then time went on, and us siblings we all went our way trying to survive.
Hi, and welcome back to Old School. Today we're going to have as our teacher in class Pamela Wagner Good. And I got introduced to her through some of these organizations that reach out to podcasts to see if they'll have someone on. And she couldn't have been a bigger fit for Old School, in my opinion. Her mental health journey in particular, but also just her healing journey overall. She wrote her story in her memoir called He Never Let Go. And it has been a delightful opportunity to speak to her. I'm thinking of even having some collaboration and maybe diving a little deeper for those of you who might enjoy this episode. If you can just let us know at either on the YouTube or through one of the uh, platforms, or maybe even if you want to reach out directly to me. So let's welcome to class today, Pamela.
So I like to begin with giving a little bit of background. I was a 3 to 4 year old child learning to navigate life with a beautiful mind mom, like the movie Russell Crowe.
Oh.
Um, and because she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. And so that's how life began. And I like when I do speak to people, I always ask them at the very beginning, I give them that information. And then I would like to tell you that just imagine, if you close your eyes, or just imagine you see a little 4 year old girl at home, and she's hungry and it's kind of quiet, but her mom is not mentally there. She is having a conversation with no one there, but it's actually conversation out the window across the street, and smoking her cigarettes and tea. So she's not paying attention if you need something. And you're kind of just there with this physical person in the house. And then you have this 4 year old girl whose little brother, who's now almost um, is 1 years old, almost two, and he is hungry and no one's paying attention. And I wasn't sure how to feed him. And mom is still talking out the window. And then this little 5 year old girl comes home one day from kindergarten and sees her mom with a broken arm and two black eyes, and said she fell while mopping the floor. And this you just take in. As a child, it's pretty hard to take in, but you just put it somewhere. And then the 6 year old little girl comes home, and she is going to have to go to the hospital because she has to have 6 teeth taken out of her because they're all infected, because she has not got eaten healthy or had good dental hygiene. And then so many years later, if you open your eyes and look up here on the stage, you see that little girl now speaking to you and sharing her story, how God brought her from darkness to light,
Mm.
and that he has never let go. And as I looked back to write about it, I saw that he would never let go. I just didn't know where I was and what I was doing. I was just trying to survive. So, as my siblings and I went through life, we all found a different way to survive. And my dad was living across the street with my grandma. So if he was close, if we needed him, and we did many times. We had a fire one night at our house, and so he got us out alive. But different things, he was right there when we needed him. If the school called him and I broke my arm, and we just proceeded, but I never felt seen or heard. I just felt in this dark place. And no kids were not allowed to come to our house. And of course, you're not quite sure why at first, right? So as time went on, I understood. So I began with a really deep um, root of rejection in me. I felt I wasn't good enough. I wasn't seen. I couldn't read, and I was in special reading, and therefore my grades were horrible. And my siblings had their own way of working through. We always, they were always playing with the neighbors or somewhere. My brother was much older, so he had some older friends that had taken him in a lot. But we had to stay with some friends or my aunt a lot when my dad would put my mom in the hospital when we were very little. And
May I
so,
ask a quick question?
sure, sure.
Because my memory, I mean, I am taking notes, but why didn't dad just get custody?
Well, he didn't divorce, he didn't separate. He's trying to get my mom healthy.
Okay. But he
He's
didn't
putting
want to
her,
just take you guys out of that environment too?
no,
Okay.
I'm not sure why. I don't know if I think he,
I was just curious,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, that's a great question. But no, we were in that environment. He just lived across the street and he was trying to get her healthy in and out of hospitals. He just wasn't about to give up. But a judge did try to take us away. And my dad said, "Yeah, over my dead body, you will." And that's why he told him his mom was there. He was right across the street. But yeah, we were still sleeping and being at our house, but we were able to go to my grandma's across the street if we needed and stay with my aunt when she was in the hospital. But so time went on and it didn't get better. And I realized in middle school and some in grade school, one thing I was good at was sports. I could climb a rope when I was in kindergarten to the top and back. I could do that stuff. And so my focus was on that. And so I didn't really have any girlfriends. And as time, I did have a neighbor. She took me to Sunday school with her one Sunday night. And that's where I was introduced to Jesus
Mm.
because my mother was Catholic and she made us go to catechism and they took me into this booth and some man I didn't know says, "Tell me about your sins." I thought,
Yes, and at
what's
5 years
this?
old, of course, you know what that means.
Yeah, I have no idea. And when I says, I think I stole my mom's cigarettes for fun. I didn't know. So I'm like, oh, this is horrible. What is this? And so eventually, I went to this other church, and my Sunday school teacher bought me a Bible when I was 8 or 9. And I still have that Bible. It's
Mm,
a zip up Bible. And I earned, then my friend, they took me to the summer camp, right?
nice.
And I learned enough verses. I got to go to camp up in the mountains. And my dad took us. He took me, took my brother, he took my sister to these camps. And well, I was just blown away because it's like, oh my goodness, you get up, you have reveille, you get to exercise. I love to exercise. And you get breakfast and you get lunch and you get dinner. I get three
It's
meals
kind of like
and I don't have
prison only.
well, and I didn't have to make my grape nuts, because I had to learn to make grape nuts on my own or eat leftover spaghetti if we had it for breakfast or whatever I could find. But here I had 3 meals and they were just so kind. And that's where I met Jesus the first time. It was very emotional. Then I came back and life. I just went right back into the life I had. But I did pray. I prayed every night since I was a little girl. Please fix my mom. Please fix my
Mm.
mom. And nothing, nothing. And so, as you can see, as time went on, I was kind of angry at God. And I didn't know the whole concept, but I was really good at sports. So I got good at sports. and I attracted boyfriends, and that's where my life went. And that's how I survived through my school years. And my mom got so bad, and my dad finally divorced her at 12. They took her away. Many things happened that year when I was 12, and it's in my book. But that was traumatic, and I didn't see her again till I was 18. Um, but the boyfriend's families, God, as I look back, boy, God put people in my life like you can't believe. And it was my boyfriend's families. They then were my family, and I had a family. And my dad was still working 2 or 3 jobs. I loved him dearly. He was my rock because I didn't know my real rock was Jesus.
Mm.
And so my dad was my rock. And I was a very emotional kid. And my dad was worried because of my personality, my demeanor. He was worried. He kept saying, "Don't you worry your pretty little head." Because the doctors told him, if you worry and keep it inside, that was part of my mom's problem. They didn't know back then. They know now a lot. But back then, they came up with all sorts of things, and did the shock treatment and all sorts of things. And so he was worried I was going to have a problem too
Mm.
if I kept, worrying. But I just went on in life, and for some reason, I had in my head that I could be the perfect wife and the perfect mother. And if I was perfect, I would show people, yes, you may know where I came from, but I am not sick. I am healthy. I am going to achieve things. And I struggled with reading, but I got through school, and I was really good at secretarial work and bookkeeping. But I married someone from a Leave It to Beaver family, seriously. And his family, I still love them dearly. We're not married anymore, but I love them dearly. And they were my family
Mm.
along with my dad. Um, and then time went on, and us siblings we all went our way trying to survive. And yet we stayed close. And then again, perfect wife, perfect family, which is, you can't be that. Nobody can be that. And it's not healthy for you to be that.
Not
But
healthy
I
to think
tried.
you're gonna. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried. And then, I had kids, and things went on. And the worst thing that could possibly happen was my dad died, and my rock was gone,
Mm.
and I broke. But boy, for years I was not going to let anybody I wasn't going to believe I was broke, and I wasn't going to let anyone else see I was broke. But I had to finally come to terms with that to get healthy again.
Sure.
And so that, again, at the bottom of my rope, I found Jesus for real this time. And he helped me climb up. And the healing process was so much harder. It was
Mm.
such a hard job because I had so many strongholds on me from Satan. I was his gold medal winner. I didn't even know what they were until a friend gave me a book about Joyce Meyer, Battlefield of the Mind.
Okay.
And I realized, oh, I am a child of God, and he loves me. So I should love me. But I keep hearing you're not good enough. Look at the mistakes you made. Look how you messed up your family. You're not a good daughter. You're not a good mom. You're not, my children, you know, had to go through a divorced family, and they loved their daddy a lot. And he was a good daddy. But I took it all on me. And when I start healing, I realize, this isn't all on me.
Right.
There's two parts here, and I don't need to take what I don't need to own.
Sure.
And that took me a long time to understand that, and to be strong on my feet, and to forgive myself and love myself. And I was getting ready to go. I thought I'd made a lot of progress, but I crashed and burned again. And I went to this healing retreat called Soul Beauty. And they asked us to go to 3 people and ask them to give us, that we trusted, that knew us, what my strengths were and my weaknesses. And The
That's a
reason
very
I
vulnerable place to put yourself in because it would be easy to pick the friends you know would say like the good stuff
Mhm.
or, but picking friends who are going to genuinely be truthful with you about the good and where maybe you might need work, that's a vulnerable space for sure.
It was, and God had put people in my life for that reason, especially towards the real intense part of my healing. And so I thought, okay. So I had asked actually four. I asked my son, my daughter, a gal I worked with, and a gal that knew me back when I actually really broke. And and this is where I know that if you do not get those wounds and peel out those layers and give them to Jesus and let go of them and heal, it will affect the people around you that you love, and especially your children. And my son said to me, one of the weaknesses was,
It's
why
okay.
don't you he goes, why don't you love yourself, mom?
Hmm.
And I knew this stuff, but to hear it come from people that you love dearly, right? And my daughter said to me, and a coworker, some you take on things and you feel that you have a responsibility in them when they're really not about you.
Mm.
Like I look at it and think, oh, what could I done different? Should have I done different? Like if someone is not liking you or being nice to you, it's not always about you. It's usually about them.
It's rarely about you. It's
And
100% about what's going on inside them. Absolutely.
yeah, that took me a really long time. And my other really good friend said to me, why don't you ever forgive yourself? You forgive everyone else, but not yourself. And they said some great strengths too, but I knew those things, but when someone actually said them to me, now I have to deal with it, right? And I have to look it in the face.
Right.
And so the retreat really helped. I was able to go and let go of many things. And I learned that you have to be so raw and real and open with yourself and vulnerable. I I I just I think I went too far blaming me for everything. And because my son says, why do you always think it's you, mom? But I said, look at the common denominator here in all of
It's
this.
hard not to believe it's you, right? Right?
Right. But what I didn't realize, it wasn't just me. It was the ruler of darkness. It was
Oh,
Satan.
yeah. He's
He,
right there
he,
with you driving the car.
yes. And I let him. I let him for years. And when I finally learned about those strongholds, I says, no more. I learned about John 10:10. And I go, no more will you do that to my life. You just won't, because sometimes you think, I need respect from this person and I have boundaries and you can't do that to me. And that's not always the case. I've learned to love with truth and grace and not be wounded and work through that because I know it's Satan coming at me because my weaknesses is being rejected and especially by my children and my
My
siblings.
I wrote a two-part memoir because when I was with my writing coaches, they felt it was so voluminous and kind of overwhelming that we broke it into two. But it basically the first part comes from childhood up through right before I meet who would become my future husband. And yes, every bit of my story is about our wounds and about healing from them emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and physically. And how, if
Yes.
you, I call it Holy Spirit triage because the triage
Mm,
process is assessing the wounds. Otherwise, a paper cut and a broken leg require two different types of treatment. So
yes.
you need to take a look and I believe that our healing starts at the moment of our wounds as well. But if we're not in that space to receive that information,
Yes.
then we may not heal from them. And then what happens is I call it that we operate out of those wounds. So we
Yes.
make decisions out of those wounds, which is
Yeah.
just going to perpetuate brokenness. Like, I don't
Mhm.
blame my ex husband for our divorce or for our marriage ending just because of his infidelity, which was throughout.
Mm.
His infidelity was the ultimate demise, but it wasn't solely the reason our marriage didn't work, because I never prayed about whether I should have even been dating him, let alone marry him. And so I have equal responsibility in the fact that even if he had stopped, or even if he had never cheated, were we going to be okay because of the way we entered into this? So I say that throughout my book, that those decisions as we get older that we make out of those wounds. Now, in that instance, yes, we do have to take some accountability, but we don't have to shame and beat up ourselves the rest of
That's
our
right.
lives. And that's where forgiveness is everything. I
Mhm.
forgave my biological father for the beatings. I forgave the
Mm.
man who sexually molested me when I was little. At that time, it's so fascinating when I looked back and was writing my story, that the Holy Spirit showed me that it wasn't God allowing that. It wasn't something I did. It was the evil of the free will of somebody else that had
Yeah.
that. So I had to release that. I had to say, I forgive them, not because I was going to forget, or because they, like I'm relinquishing them from their own accountability, but I can't walk around with that. I mean, the
No.
choices I made going into adulthood were bad enough. If I had been sitting there with unforgiveness for all those people, it would have been, I can't even imagine. And then ultimately, as I got older and I was starting to let the Holy Spirit show me where I was wounded and how, I realized that the last person I needed to forgive was me,
Yeah.
because I saw myself, just like you said, as the common denominator. Like, how come each of these friendships have ended? How come each of these romantic relationships have ended? And I'm the common denominator, so I must be screwing up. I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said it really well, about how you work through those wounds. That's how you just keep going. And it gets, I mean, it doesn't make it better. I mean, I tried so many things. I mean, my physical part was great. It was my spiritual and my mental and emotional part that needed a lot of work. But in my determination to show everybody how strong and healthy I was, I mean, I decided to jump out of an airplane thinking thinking I always wanted to.
With
My
the
husband says,
parachute? No.
I did. I did have well, I did tandem because
Oh,
we
fun.
could take, yeah, we could take the lesson faster. But I thought if I'm falling through the sky at 9,000 feet, it's going to clarify my life. And I will see whether I need to get a divorce or not, or what I should do, right?
It's
So
all gonna pass before your
yes.
eyes.
Yeah, I thought it would, but instead I got kind of nauseous. But as we're, I did, as we're getting ready to go, I could hear the accelerator people going out of the airplane going, "Whew, whew." And I was attached to my person already, sitting on his lap. And I go, I don't think I want to do this now. And that was the whole point of doing it tandem, so I wouldn't chicken out. So we were the first ones to stand up, and I go, no, really, you don't understand. I don't want to do this. And God's humor, here was his clue. The guy started humming, Here Comes the Bride, as I'm going out the plane. And it's like, to him, it was like doomsday, here we go. But God's saying, yes, they married. That didn't work. So then I entered in a boxing bout because I was so angry at myself. My coworkers go, just enter this boxing bout, represent our facility at the prison, and get it out of you. Good. So I did.
Did you
And
win? Or
I did win.
did you get it out?
I had a headache when I got done, yes, from being hit. But I could never do that today because that's not where my anger and thought process was. Um, I got it out, but I'm not so sure. It didn't really help. I still had to heal me. I had to find out whose child I was. I had to find, just really dig deep and heal my spirit and my soul and know that I am loved and I messed up, and hopefully my kids can forgive me. And I'm not the only one that messed up. You know,
Right.
I will walk and take whatever I need to, what is mine to own. That was a big thing I had to learn at my last job because I was in with my kids. I was taking all the bad stuff on, and I'm going, and that was even killing me, you know. And so, you know, when I broke, and I broke big, 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 I wanted God to take me home. I didn't think I needed to stay any longer. And
Mhm.
but now I'm very thankful for unanswered prayers. I think Garth Brooks has a song that sings that, because what has come since then is I was made for more, and God is using me, which I would have never in my wildest mind thought I'd want to do my book. And so when I started healing, he took me back. You'd asked me where my book started. He took me back um, to my hometown where all the darkness started. And my siblings were concerned. And I go, this feels right. This feels where God's taken me. He's placed me. I got a scholarship to pay for my school because I went back to school after 50 and became a surgical tech in the OR. And I went back to the town I grew up and worked in that hospital.
Oh, wow.
And I, my best friend, who's unfortunately no longer with us, she's the one that helped me get that job. And they paid for all my school. And I just went back there to work. And I was able to be in the town that I felt so dark in most of my childhood.
Was your mother
And
still alive at this point?
when I went back there, um, no, actually, when I broke, and I broke hard, I asked, I needed to get myself healthy. And what I had done, oh, guys, 15 years before that, my mom tried to kill herself. And so I made the decision and told my siblings, I have kids, I have a family, I can't run out to California. I need to move her here, and I need to take care of her mental health with doctors here. And I just felt that was what I needed to do. And um, right before I moved her out, my dad passed, and then my mom came, and I got her a place to live. And so I was actually, my brother goes, how are we? We've never had her as a mom. What do I do? And I go, we let her be a grandma to our kids. And in that, schizophrenia can go in different phases, and they can be in a healthy phase
Huh.
as if they feel safe. When I researched my book, I found so much about this. And if they feel safe and secure and on the right meds and loved. And so she was with us probably for, I think it was like 15 years before I broke. And when I broke, she broke again
Mm.
and went deep into her phase. And then I had to have my sister take her because I had to get healthy. So she moved I'm down to Texas for my with my sister, but I was told she wouldn't live long because they you don't handle changes well, especially as you age in mental illness. And so I went back to school, and before I finished my schooling, I got a call that she was going into a coma. So I had to leave school, and so she passed right before I started my new job.
Mm.
And so dealing with all of that and then going back to there. But I went to a retreat one night, and I was listening to these women's testimonies. And again, never in my wildest dreams did I think I was going to be wanting to go to church and listening to messages and hanging on to Jesus for dear life. And so I'm listening to this, and I felt this presence come over me and says, this is what you do, Pam. You take your story, you write it, and you share it with people who are hurting like you did, and share it how you and I have been on this journey, and how you are healing and where you're going and how it works. And that's where it began. It
And
took
that's
years later.
absolutely, we're supposed to comfort with the comfort we've received. And the second part of my memoir, the back half of it, is my literal healing journey. And then I wrote
Mm,
a companion guide that will help others start their journey. And I emphasize over and over, it doesn't mean that all of the people who walk our journeys have to publish up their story, because that terrifies
Yes.
a lot of people. In fact, a lot of people are terrified to even speak it. They keep looking over their shoulder, even though like their abusers or whoever was involved are long
Yeah.
gone.
Yep.
So I think that that's absolutely what we're supposed to do with our stories. Not that they have to be published, but that we have to tell them. And we have to use that, because if what happened to me and what happened to you just amounted to nothing other than it got us to this place in our journey, that would be awful. That would just be awful. I need to know that that can work together for good for somebody, and I know it has
Yes.
for me mostly. I'm the one the book was most for, and then now I get to share with others. So your story is incredible. We have so much in the mental health space in this country, well, in the world right now. And there's so much people don't understand. They
Yes.
want to first just dump a bunch of medication on people
Yes.
as opposed
Oh,
to trying to figure out where stuff is coming from. And some of it could be very much from our food supply and our water supply and toxic load and all of these things. I just would love to hear people take a look at the whole thing. I'm not saying meds aren't necessary or possible. I'm just saying at some point when somebody's taken like 10 of them, there got to be some contraindication and there's
yeah.
got to be some problems, right? So I think your story is so important because there are a lot of people who had a beautiful mind, spouse, a beautiful
Mhm.
mind, parents, children, and it is hard not to think something you did created that environment, or something, you know what I mean? Where do I look around? Where do I go? Where do I begin? And your
Yep.
vulnerability about being broken and about, this not being simple. And it's not that Jesus doesn't make it simple for us, but it's just as humans, that's just the battle we have. And he can take us asking why. He can take us saying,
Yeah.
why didn't this go this way? Because he had a bigger picture in mind. And it's hard. It's really hard. The things that happened to me as a small child, a lot of people come up to me and say, how can you possibly believe that Jesus was in all of this and this healing for you when that happened to you and he didn't stop it? So you have to have those conversations about how each of us as humans, he doesn't force us to love him or force us into a relationship with him. And that we're all 8 billion of us are out here doing what we think, as the Israelites did, what is right in our own eyes.
Yep.
So, that's the world we live in. And I don't try to be trite. I don't try to say little churchy answers. Scripture can stand on its own, but people need to hear what Jesus is doing in our life as
Yes.
a way to start that journey. I think that's the ultimate best story. Is I call it my story, his story, our story, because
Yeah.
that's how we can do lifestyle evangelism and talk to others, get them started on that healing journey, help them see the bigger picture, to not sit in their own unforgiveness or unforgiving others. I have brothers who went through some of this journey with me, and one of them, I don't know if he's forgiven or if he's just in his own headspace there. One is openly not going to forgive our
Yeah.
biological father. And I can see the low level kind of anger and angst that has been with him his whole life because of that. It's not that he's had a bad life, just I just think how much more glorious could it be if you realized he doesn't care one whit if we forgive him or not, our
Yep.
father.
That's
It's
right.
all about, what that's doing to tear us up inside, right? The
Well,
same with
it's,
your mom or your dad
yeah.
or your kids, you know. Yes, my daughter had a lot of questions about how my marriage came apart, but she
Yes.
also understood that none of it was her fault and that she couldn't, frankly, move forward in decisions and blame, well, it's because my mom divorced my dad or it's because my dad was whatever,
Yes.
right? We
Right.
have to have our accountability. When it comes time to stand before God, we're going to spend eternity somewhere. And we need to be able to say, I made these choices And so either I forgive myself, I forgive them, and I move on, or I sit here as a little victim.
Right. And I feel when you can be accountable for yours, when you can forgive you and others, the freeing part of that is huge.
Yeah.
It's so freeing. You are now free and you can really hear what God, the life he created for you. It's so much more. And when I realized I only had, when I was holding my dying mother-in-law in my arms, I was like, she's not living, Lord. It's time. And then I realized I only have so many more years. I better get on this. I better start living that life and be happy and joyful. And it is on you. I can see it in people's attitudes. I used to be that person in the negative. And
Mhm.
you're always looking at the negative part. And the forgiveness is huge. But I picked up this card I saw once, and it took me a while to grasp it, but it says, "Someone I once loved gave me a box full of darkness, and it took me years to understand that too was a gift."
Mm.
And I have taken, I was angry at God and other people that have just misjudged me and wasn't hearing me. And that is a box full of darkness, but it was a gift because I needed to know they don't define me. Only God defines me. And if God loves me, I love me. And me and him can conquer whatever it is to be conquered. And I say that all the time. You and me, God, got this. You got me. Especially when I'm doing a triathlon and I'm tired, or when I was in 8-hour surgeries. You got this. Come on, God, help us get done. Let's go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I had writing coaches who told me to start a podcast. So I started a podcast at 60, first book published at 62, my second and third one just this past September in 63. So it's
Wow,
like
nice.
we're yes, I'm finally like grabbing a hold of the life he intended for me because I spent
Yeah.
all those years not consulting him, or
Yes.
maybe I consulted him but I didn't listen.
I know. I would just pray for my children and things, but I never, you're right. I remember making this decision and just walked around crying, go, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? But I wasn't waiting for the answer. I
Mm,
wasn't hearing it. And until I actually crashed and started all over again. And I don't know, I'm here. I get to redo my relationships with my children, and I get to love on my 4 grandchildren like none other. And during the book, my older siblings didn't talk much about anything. And none of us would really talk about it. Even my younger brother said once, when he was an athletic director, and a coach said to him, they called him Wags, goes, Wags, you don't ever talk about your life as a kid growing up. And my comes from that movie A Few Good Men with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise. My brother goes, "You don't want the truth, you can't handle the truth."
yeah.
And I use that sometimes in my talk, and I says, but truthfully, the person who couldn't handle the truth is me. I'm
Right.
not going to admit I'm broken. And until I did, I wasn't free.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, the truth, I mean, it sounds like a bumper sticker, but the truth shall set you free.
yes,
And and it really does. And I always my conversations every morning, I have a prayer time. I call it with my board of directors, the Holy Spirit, my King Jesus, and my
I
Abba
love that.
Father. And so when I encounter something and I start to take it personally, something somebody else said, something I did, whatever, where the shame and the guilt or some other identity tries to weasel its way in, I call it what's true and what's real. So I sit in my prayer time and I go, what is true about this situation and what is real about this situation? And if it is something that I truthfully have done or a behavior I have, then okay, now we're going to address it. But if it's not, then that's gone. That has to go. We're going to shake it off because that is not my identity in Christ. That is not who I am or who I've been created to be. But as humans who have gone through these experiences, through life
Yeah.
experiences, we are going to sometimes be impacted. And we're going to be impacted by the good stuff too. Sometimes we can get told we're really great at something and get a little, in a different space too. So, what's true and what's real for me keeps me level headed, keeps me in the moment of choosing joy each day, is how I'm going to go about
Yep.
my day. And people, the biggest thing from that people get from reading my book, and if you see the cover, the first book is a little shocking about the wounds, um, is that they look at me and they go, "How can you be upright and just always laughing and always, I'm like, it's not fake. It was when I was younger. Humor and
Yep.
being a smart aleck was my cover story. But
Yes.
now it's genuinely, I think God has the best sense of humor. When he has a lesson for me, it always comes in a smart aleck form because he knows otherwise it may like evade me.
Yes. No, so, so true. I mean, the humor he has, and when you see these little things, nuggets that he puts, you're like, oh, okay, okay.
When he
But
does that, yeah, I look up and go, well played. You know,
yeah,
well played, God.
I like that. Well played. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, just in the when you're in that when I was doing the cover for my book, I remember I was advised to, I got all the color schemes and then they told me to figure out which one I wanted and look at what the colors meant and then look at covers and get ideas. And they wanted me to do, because I had healed and come through this so much better, they wanted me to do this green and blue and mountain streams because a lot of it took place up in the mountains where I lived. And I go, well, that's beautiful, but that's really not where the book, most of it's about. I didn't do a second memoir where it takes even more of my healing further. It does the big bulk, the real hard stuff where I broke through. But I says, that's not the book. We have to show the chaos and the heartbreak and the wounds. So I have to go with reds and purples and this stuff that just looks at you,
Right.
because that's the people that are going to read it. That's where they are right now. They're not,
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's like when
So,
when people look at the cover of my first book, it's called Butterfly Stitches: The Metamorphosis of Healing, and I have
yes,
my arms around my knees. I have no clothes on, but I'm not naked. Like people can't
yes,
see my stuff. But my niece did a makeup job. She put a butterfly stitch, black
uh,
lip or black eye, busted lip, and so it's to
ooh,
represent that we will pull those wounds into adulthood if we don't
yes,
address them. And
yes,
more people see that and they're like, start crying. I need to talk to
mhm,
you. I want to read this. I want to understand how I can, get engaged with my story to heal. So
yes,
absolutely. I think that
yeah,
it's really important. And I self-published because I knew that if I tried traditional publishing, I didn't have the platform for somebody anyway, but they would have made me change the title, the
yes,
cover,
yes,
everything. And I was like, no, this is the vision the Lord has given me, and this is what I'm going to do. And
right,
I didn't write a book to make money. I wrote
yeah,
it because He told me to write my story, and I believe
yes,
that's going to further speaking, further some retreats He's asking me to do. So I think
awesome,
I think this is awesome. You have been a delight. I concur with the people who say this about me, that when I look at you and when I hear you tell your story, it is hard to believe, but not in the vein of where Jesus has brought you. Absolutely, I
yeah,
expect what you look like and what I look like because Jesus brought us through.
yeah,
And
yeah,
this has been wonderful. I can't wait to get your book. I usually have them ahead of time, and I in the beginning, my first season, I tried to read everybody's book all the way through,
uh,
and boy, was that was exhausting.
it
So,
was,
but
it
I'll
was.
get it. But what I do with every one of my guests is I ask for a little nugget. I ask, what is the one thing that you wish you knew or someone had told you sooner?
I wish I would, well, I knew as a child of God, but I didn't grasp that. But I think I truly wish I knew about the ruler of darkness and the strongholds,
Mm,
like the guilt and the mistakes and you not feeling worthy. and you're not being seen and heard. I wish I would have known that was part of the play. That,
Mm,
like John 10:10 says, he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Where
mm.
I came, if I didn't understand any of that, and I didn't understand the strongholds, because I thought it was just me thinking those things, and I really am those things, and other people think those things. So that not true. Not true. That is not coming from Jesus.
That's awesome. I've had a lot not every guest I've had is a Christian, but I've had a lot of Christian authors, and a lot of time when they give the nugget, I don't know if they maybe feel like this it needs to be like that Jesus X, Y, or Z, or that salvation X, Y, or Z. So I think it's awesome that you're pointing out the other players. We do not battle with flesh and blood. And that it's true. I wish, because there in our society, there's a lot, and in Christian circles too, there's a lot of opportunity to blame Satan, which is very real. But
Mhm.
then there's the taking the accountability for your own choices out of some things. But very real is the fact that we do not battle with flesh and blood. And I
No,
love that. That's
it's spiritual warfare, and
Yes,
but people
absolutely.
like to blame other people. So that was a huge one for me to learn. Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Well, you're
Okay,
delightful, and I'm glad that we were able to connect and get this episode together. And I will let you know when it's going to come out, and I will definitely like to get your book and finish it. And I will maybe we can have you back on if we want to maybe have a collaboration episode where we talk about both of our healing journeys in a little more depth. That would be
oh,
fun.
that's fabulous. That is. I know. I love speaking to mom co women and other people, and it's amazing because they come back and go, "My story is kind of like that." So that's healing in itself for me and them. So I would love to talk to you. And yes, I love your podcast. I've listened to several.
Oh, thank you. Well, this
Yes.
has been great. And thank you so much, hon. And I will let you know.
Okay. Have a good day.
I want to thank you for coming to class today. I think it has just been really incredible to hear from Pamela, to hear about her journey. I believe that's what we're called to do to to make sure that we comfort with the comfort we've received. And it has been a great conversation. I feel very connected to a lot of what Pamela had to go through. And I believe that this could lead to an even a more awesome collaboration, maybe even for a virtual retreat where all of you can gain some experience and some knowledge from our deeper dive into our healing journey. So we'll see what that leads to. And if that would be of interest to you, if you'd make a comment, like, subscribe, send me an email, whatever you want to do to let me know. I have a couple of other guests that I feel could be valuable in an environment like that, and maybe we can make that happen. So thank you for coming to class today, and class dismissed.